classic. I mean, it really wraps up a lot of his thinking into one good, succinct piece of work, and he adds a couple of extra elements there with regard to how Luxay and how the change agents affected the psychology of young people. So talk a little more, Bill, about Crimes of the Educators.
Well, it is a great read, and it's going to explain more of the details that I may have overlooked, in my conversation of trying to display about how the brain works. He has a section in there. Now, I remember talking with Sam. He said, Bill, I need $26,000. I says, what do you want to do? He says, I want to write a book called The Making of the Black Underclass. I said,
Yes.
Wow, that sounds good.
Sounds explosive.
Well, I know, but I mean, he wanted to explain to the black people why they weren't learning to read properly, and it's the
Right.
same. So, however, I guess what happened is we couldn't get the money, but he included a chapter in this book on that subject, The Making of the Black Underclass. He has in the back the full appendix on John Dewey's, the education fetish that you talked about.
Right.
And then he goes through each chapter. There's going to be the information on why children are having problems to read. And Chuck, if with your permission, I'd like to leave this here as a gift to the studio coordinators here
Fantastic.
who do such a nice job.
Thank you. In a nutshell, what was Sam's premise with regard to how the so-called change agents screwed over the black community?
It was in the reading. He said if they could have learned to read, like we visited the Waite House, which is right here in Roxbury.
Yes.
WAITT, and we brought them 20 of these books free from the foundation.
Right.
And they teach phonics, they teach this book, and it was just a marvelous thing to see. He addressed the class, and he gave his dissertation on the importance of the brain, and he said that his feeling was that God's greatest creation is the brain.
And also, I mean, as a sidebar issue to the to how the change agents have screwed over the black community, Sam said that if you interview there's a large proportion of prisoners who happen to be black men. And if you interview them, you find out that the vast majority of them do not read properly. So the breakdown of the ability to read at a young age was particularly deleterious to their development. And that as adults, as they're being reintroduced to reading, and as they're being reintroduced to a little concept called God, they are able to rehabilitate themselves and get away from this change agent agenda, which wanted to replace God with the state, wanted to replace reading with this kind of hackneyed, dumbed-down approach that would basically turn people's cognitive ability into scrambled eggs.
He said it is a crime to destroy a child's brain.
Yes, it is. And it's an outrageous thing as you read this and how they actually went about doing this, how they accomplished it. It's hair-raising stuff. And of course, that's why Sam's book was banned from the Thomas Crane Public Library in our hometown of Quincy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I have it in my library. I encourage people to get the book, read it, and share it with your library,
Yeah, and also there's, Sam talked to me about the creation of the National Training Laboratory in Bethel, Maine, which has given birth to literally the change agents. That's what they call them. Kurt Lewin being the therapist there, who was also very much admired by the communist therapists in the Soviet Union and had interactions with Pavlov's school, and how he talked about, he developed the concept of social psychology and, sensitivity training. And what that did was it took over the entire business of psychology. Not that it ever was scientific anyway, but it took it over and turned it into a political football. Then you have psychology being used as a way of conditioning people toward collectivism, attacking enemies of that by saying that there's something mentally wrong. I mean, there's shelves and volumes and libraries of books on the topic of what's mentally wrong with people who don't genuflect to the left. I mean, it goes back to the Frankfurt School back in the 1930s. I'm actually studying this for my new book, which will be coming out soon. But there has, it's a complete politicization of what should be a legitimate science, and that is psychology. Sam points out that the left has completely politicized the legitimate science of education. teaching a person how to think on their own, cognitively, as a citizen, so they can prepare to become a productive citizen of this country for their own reasons, out of self-interest, because it connotes and coincides with human nature. Not some kind of a cog in the wheel of some left-wing, amorphous international beehive, which is what Dewey wrote about. Mr. McManus?
Well, I think I knew Sam Blumenfeld before he got involved in the study of reading and before he kind of diverted a lot of his energy towards the subject that we're talking about here today. But Sam was a vibrant anti-communist.
Yes, he was.
He and I share a common, something common about both of us. We both grew up in New York City, right? I grew up in the better part, though. I was from Brooklyn.
Right.
But so I've known Sam since probably 1964, 65, and it's always been a pleasure. I had the occasion maybe, 6 months ago or so, to give a talk to a group about the United Nations. And Sam, who of course was quite an authority on the subject himself, he came up to me afterwards and he said, "Boy," he said, "you've got new information in there that I didn't even know about the United Nations and how dangerous it is." And I took that as a very high compliment,
Right, well,
because I
absolutely.
knew Sam and I've known him for so long. So he'd be missed, but he made so many contributions that we can still use his genius and his drive to help an awful lot of people today.
I agree. I mean, Sam is one of those people that he's not going to be, the praises are not going to be sung by the establishment ever.
No.
In fact,
He didn't want that.
But his work is out there. I mean, I'm proud to say that I conducted thousands of hours of radio time with Sam over many years, and fortunately, because of technology, a lot of that's now available online. You can go to, just look up Chuck Morse Speaks or look up Sam Blumenfeld, and you'll find audio of many of the shows, and I'm very proud of those. I mean, I always look forward to a show with Sam. He always had a way of getting right to the essence of an issue.
Right.
He
wasn't much fluff in his life.
And one of the things I liked about what he did was he said, he gave a dissertation on the 21 reasons why you should teach your own children to read or homeschool.
Exactly.
And he said, it's just a delight. He says, just think about it. You can teach them at home. You can teach them God. You can teach them the Bible. But first of all, we have to learn to read. We can't read the Bible if we can't read, right? But you remember the story, did he tell you the story? Yeah, I know he did, about Nelson Rockefeller, the functional illiterate?
Oh,
Tell
sure.
that one.
Well, I mean, I think that he points out that
Just to prove our point.
yeah, Rockefeller sent his own sons to the Lincoln School, which was John Dewey recommended, and they all had dyslexia, which, maybe it showed how unwitting he was, I don't know, but the thing is that Dewey is doing, these people, James Cattell and some of these other characters, the so-called frontier thinkers, they're using children like guinea pigs. They're using our children to conduct these social experiments in the same way that V.I. Pavlov used dogs. Literally.
Yeah.
They were learning from that. That's why the Soviet Union advanced that kind of, scientific approach. And that's what socialism is. If you look at it, public ownership of the means of production, public ownership of the means of communication, of the means of distribution. In other words, the state owns it. The state acts as an agent for the quote-unquote public to own and control your life, your destiny. And in order to do that, they create this product that prevents or circumvents the ability of a person to create and to think on their own, cognitively.
You mentioned that Nelson Rockefeller couldn't read, and he told people, he said, listen, I don't read so good, so I'm just going to, read off the cuff. But he never blamed it on that school.
Oh, yeah, they didn't put it together. Yeah.
He never put the blame.
His father thought he was doing the boys a favor by sending them to a place where they would not learn how to read.
Yeah, imagine.
Right. That's what happened, and of course, that's what's happening to a lot of parents today. They don't grasp the fact that the school system that they're sending their children to isn't going to do the job that they want them to do.
No.
You know,
there were some statistics that came out recently where the United States was one of 34 industrialized countries that were rated on student performance in reading, in science, and in history, I guess. And the United States came in the lower 20s in each category.
Right.
Right.
Terrible.
Right. We're way behind Finland.
Well, Finland actually has the right idea if you study their school
Yes.
system. But, you know, this is why our Senate right now is debating a bill that would give visas and green cards to professionals, people who can work for, you know, Microsoft and some of those companies, because America is not producing people who can do that. So we're having to import them.
Yes.
And it says something about, I mean, look, I think that probably, unfortunately, maybe they should have to come because we have to want to see those industries grow. But doesn't that say something about the fact that our education, I mean, they don't get that piece of it. The fact that the education has created people, subpar education people, you know, people who are not.
I had a brief stint in Mass General Hospital recently, and the doctors were Chinese,
Yeah.
Indian,
a lot of Indian,
Lebanese.
Right,
Right?
sure.
I don't think I met a Caucasian doctor from the United States.
Well, that's
What-
because the countries like even China, I guess, but certainly, as you say, Finland and other countries, they're not doing this. I mean, they're not using phonics. You know, they're using phonics. They're not doing these kind of fluffy behaviorist educational ideas. You know, this is bringing this country down. It's bringing society down. And the thing that makes me the most angry about it is that we're paying for it. We're paying for a huge bill to support this rotten,
That's right.
corrupt.
We spend more money than most, and we're 20th or 25th in the rating system.
That's right.
Chuck, just let me make it clear to the viewers.
Sure.
This is a pamphlet. It's the President's Excellence Commission on Education. It's called A Nation at Risk. Let me just read a little short. It says, the United States is being eroded by a rising tide of mediocrity that threatens our very future as a nation and a people. What was unimaginable a generation ago has begun to occur. Others are matching and surpassing our educational attainments. If an unfriendly foreign power had attempted to impose on America the mediocre education performance that exists today, we might well have viewed it as an act of war. As it stands, we have allowed this to happen to ourselves.
And
we-
what
and we
year was
paid
that
for it.
published?
1983,
Okay.
commission.
That's a federally appointed commission to
federal-
study the educational system. Came out with that.
Right.
That's right. I mean, we're not talking about some right-wing thing here. I mean, this is, you know,
Right.
this is
Yeah.
the government
And
itself.
we paid for it.
Yeah.
Good. Well,
And we continue to
well,
pay
that's,
for it.
At least paying for that is a good use of the money.
Yeah.
But the yeah.
I just want to show a picture of Sam
Sam.
for the audience. This is when he appeared on the front page of the Review of the News.
That's the John Birch Society publication, by the way.
And I'm
Yep.
sitting next to the publisher of the New American, which he went on to write for that magazine, which is here.
And he looked about the same when he came on this show 2 months
I
ago.
know it. The same as this, but here it is, the whole language fraud that we talked about,
Yeah.
why you need to learn phonics, why it is so important.
The whole language OBE fraud.
Fraud, yeah.
It's one of his books. And Sam's books, he wrote a shelf of books.
And this one we should mention,
Well, let's
right?
before we go to there.
Okay.
He wrote a shelf of books on this topic, all available on Amazon. He spent his life, this is one of the many issues he researched, but he spent his life researching this issue, and he uncovered some incredible things that just, when I read Sam's stuff, I find my blood, I get sweaty under the collar.
Absolutely.
It's so
Yeah.
angering.
And
when
we
you
didn't
see-
even mention the Blumenfeld education letters
Oh,
that are
yes.
still available for free downloads. And
Now,
I didn't
Sam
bring a
Sh-
copy of
But
one.
you did bring Sam's Shakespeare Marlowe.
Oh, yeah, want to show that one? Yeah, I'd like to show this book.
Sam wrote a book basically saying that Shakespeare was not Shakespeare.
Right. But
He did
this
not.
is a classic, beautiful conspiracy story.
Yeah.
If
That
you like
Shakespeare was
conspiracy-
actually Marlowe.
Yeah. See, he's saying here. Now look at the eye. See the eye here? You see, that's Marlowe with the mask being peeled. You know, it's a picture of Shakespeare himself but behind that mask is Marlowe.
Is Marlowe.
This is a beautiful read too.
Yeah, it's very, very good.
It talks about how Marlowe actually wrote all of Shakespeare's plays, but then in the time of England, with all the problems they were having with heresy and things, that
Marlowe had to leave the country.
He had to leave the country, but that's all in the book.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Yeah, so Sam was one of those thinkers who didn't really care about political correctness.
No.
He really, it was a concept that was just not on his mind or his radar. He was an unusual person in that sense. One of these people who just, he was very deeply read and knowledgeable, and he could speak on just a variety of things, getting right into the crux of it. He had the kind of a mind that I would think we would want to emulate and want our young people to emulate, in that, just the example of his life is somebody who thought on his own. He went his own way in terms of his research on a variety of topics that caught his interest. And he was dogged in his perseverance of uncovering facts that, he wouldn't let go of it until he really developed something, and did so many times on my show. That was just amazing and inspiring.
He's left a legacy for America, that's for sure. And the Samuel L. Blumenfeld Literacy Foundation, slblf.com, hopes to promote it. We have, like I said, given 20, 30 books to the Waite School right here in Roxbury. I came down with Sam. Here he is, he's 88 at the time. Mm-hmm. And his energy, incredible at that age. He says, Bill, we'll go down to Roxbury School, we'll go through the classes, and I videotaped him with the Stephen Hanley, the director of the school, and all the people there had the phonics books, and we brought him this new one, the new, which is the same as the other one, except that it's, like I said, cheaper,
Well, look, Sam also wrote a lot about Marva Collins,
Marva Collins.
She was given an abandoned grocery store building in the south side of Chicago, a poor neighborhood, and she brought students in that school on a shoestring who were very troubled students, and completely transformed their lives by using such things as phonics. Teaching them how to read, she demanded strong discipline. She demanded people wear a certain uniform. And those students were graduating and entering into very successful lives. And she got in trouble with the establishment for that. Because first of all, she was doing it on a shoestring. You didn't need this establishment spending tens of thousands of dollars per student, employing basically all these political hacks and these change agents sitting around in Washington. She did it just right on the street, showing people how to think.
But you know what she had, best of all? She had class.
Yeah.
She had a way of manipulating those children. She'd say, when a child would speak out, I'd go down to the back of the room. I wouldn't say anything. I'd just stand next to him, and he'd get calm. And she just had so many
she had
techniques.
great presence, yeah.
And she wrote the book, Marva Collins' Way. Excellent book.
Brilliant
in fact,
woman.
In his legacy, I found a signed copy by Marva Collins that I'm hoping to put it on eBay for $1,000 and maybe get a donation.
Yeah, all to the Sam Blumenfeld Literacy Foundation. Which of course is something that we'd like to see advance. I would hope that these books, and I'm not holding up a lot of hope, but that they get into the hands of every teacher in America. And I think there are still very good teachers out there, but there's also mixed in with those good teachers these so-called change agents who, they're younger people coming up. I don't think they're conscious of what they're doing. They've been inculcated, the National Training Laboratories, all these things. And they're teaching this sort of new methodology. Young people in those classes, I can speak to this from my own family, they know that this is BS. They know that this is bad stuff. But, the teachers have that kind of position. And I honestly don't think they're conscious of it.
Well, I think Sam's writings, on can dyslexia be artificially induced, will help the teachers to understand and maybe make a change. I don't know. I'm hoping.
It's as you say, Ms. McManus, it's one person at a time.
Oh, yeah.
It's just reaching out to people and they wake up. I know even when we had Sam Blumenfeld come to this show right here at BNN, 3 weeks before he passed away. He was absolutely dynamite. He was all fired up. I'm so honored that he did it. But people really responded to that.
Had I known this studio existed a year or two ago, I'd have been down here with Sam, and we would have produced another a good phonics program, how to really read, because this is a nice studio. I love
It's
this.
excellent, yeah. But Sam does have some phonics methods.
Well, we're on YouTube.
on
We're on
YouTube.
YouTube. Yeah, it's Blumenfeld Teaches Phonics. There's the whole 128 lessons are on YouTube.
And also there's still the Alpha Phonics game, which is available and it still can be purchased. And phonics is something, if you think that your son or daughter is not reading, doesn't like reading, and they seem like they're kind of shut down a little bit, it could be something as simple as teaching them basic phonics and you'll be amazed by how that'll turn somebody around.
You know what he said about it? He said, take the child, he's 5 years old. He's taught himself to speak. In other words, he didn't go to school to learn how to speak, but he says these average children, 5 years old, they could have as many as 12,000 to 20,000 words. When they come to school, they have all that in their head.
That's right.
And then you want to know why he said they get this ADHD? Because they can't use that knowledge. They've taught themselves to read, but they get stuck in this whole word method, and then they become hyperactive.
In other words,
Yeah,
they're
they
being
go from
taught
bored to hyperactive.
Yeah, they're bored.
Yeah, they're being taught not to read.
Not to read.
Basically, and worse.
And
Because,
this
I mean,
is
it's
so
a big
important
subject.
to learn this, what Sam has given us, this legacy. I
Yeah.
just keep working on it, and I'm so glad that you invited us in to talk about it.
It's a pleasure, and I mean, it's a big subject. I want to continue to develop it. Just the social and impact of this change agent establishment, what that's had. I mean, Karl Marx said in the Communist Manifesto that you start with the children. You know, you begin to take over education. It's one of the planks. Anyway, we've pretty much reached the end of the program. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Mr. McManus, it's been an honor. Bill McNally, thank you very much. And onward and upward. Quickly, Sam Blumenfeld Literacy Foundation, how do people get it?
slblf.com, slblf.com. It's the Samuel L. Blumenfeld Literacy Foundation in Windham, New Hampshire. We hope we can teach you to read.
And let me close with those who will not read have no advantage over those who cannot read.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So pick up a book, folks, and turn that television off.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. And think for yourself. Have an imagination, you know.